Welcome to the Strategies for Success Online Summit 2015. I am so excited. Let me introduce myself. I am your host, Gina Battye. To celebrate the launch of my new course, which is called Discover Your Direction, I decided to reach out to 7 experts from around the world to have conversations about the things that keep you up at night. So listen, I'm not here to live by half measures, and I know that you don't want to either. For all you persistent, determined, strong, and confident women out there, I know you will resonate with this, and this summit is for you. Let's get straight to it. If you're unsure where you're heading and you're looking for guidance on how to figure that out, and if you want to figure out why you're here and your purpose in life, and you want to know how to wrap the things that you're passionate about around your vision and your purpose, and you want to get your hands on strategies to keep you focused and to feel fulfilled, this is where you need to be. Look at me. I used to be a UK size 16, which is a US size 12. I turned my life around by focusing on 3 areas. The first was mastering my body. The second was mastering my self-belief and my mindset. And the third was mastering my mission and purpose in life. As you can see, I've gone through quite a transformation, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually too. My work focuses around personal mastery, specifically focusing on those 3 areas: body mastery, self-belief mastery, and mission and purpose in life. I work with strong and confident women, where I'm a high-performance personal mastery coach, best-selling author, and one of the UK's leading public speakers. So what is personal mastery? Personal mastery is about being persistent in effort and stubbornly tenacious in attitude. It's not about being perfect every day. As I said, it's about being persistent and stubbornly tenacious. It's about being focused and determined and believing in yourself, and believing that anything that you dream about, you can make happen. I am so excited to bring you 8 mastery experts from around the world, and they will all be under your roof. I'm bringing to you strong and confident people who work every day to master themselves and their craft. They know to their very core that personal mastery isn't a one-time investment, a quick fix, or a short-term goal. They know it is a lifelong investment. If you're truly working on personal mastery, is there ever a finishing line to that? My answer would be no, there's never a finishing line to it. There may be pauses where things are going great and you demonstrate that you're skillful at mastering situations and events in your life. If you go back and reflect on your life, even the most strong and confident people feel like they're getting kicked in the gut and are challenged to get back up at certain points in time. And at those points, it requires new skills to master that moment, that new kind of moment that you're experiencing. In my experience, it takes a minimum of 3 months for you to be able to take something new, be it a new skill, a new technique, or a new strategy, and to put it into place and start to see some changes. These new skills, techniques, and strategies are exactly what we're going to tackle in my new course, Discover Your Direction. More about that later on. The aim of the summit is to pull back the curtains on personal mastery and explore life-changing teachings that will set you up for success. So who will you hear from? I am talking to Michelle Cameron Coulter, Olympic gold medalist, about discovering your passion. I'm talking to Glenn Morshower, one of the busiest character actors in Hollywood. We're talking about alignment and intuition. I'm talking to Sharon Lecter, the genius behind the Rich Dad brand and currently partnered with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. We're talking about vision and living a life of significance and success. I'm talking to Dr. Bill Dorfman, celebrity dentist and New York Times best-selling author. We're talking about goal setting, masterminding, and leadership. I'm talking to Roz Savage MBE, who holds 4 world records for ocean rowing and is the first woman to row solo across 3 oceans. We're talking about courage and collective consciousness. I'm talking to Eric Swanson, award-winning speaker and success coach, about productivity and habits for success. And last but certainly not least, I am talking to Dr. Gina Battye, best-selling author of numerous books, law of attraction expert, and featured in the movie The Secret. We're talking about overcoming procrastination. There's a special bonus for you too. To celebrate the launch of my new course, Discover Your Direction, I'll be hosting a live webinar. We'll be talking about discovering your direction and explore the key learnings from the summit. Be sure to check in with all the conversations. You will learn something from every single one, I promise you. It is my mission to invite people around the world to step into their power. I offer you that invitation now to step up and realise your full potential. I invite you into our world, into our lives, where you'll hear from 8 mastery experts. What we have to share with you will start you on your journey to realising your full potential. Ask yourself, here and now, are you all in? If you are, let's go. Let's do this. I am super excited today. And the reason being, I've got Roz Savage with me. And let me just introduce Roz to you right now. Roz Savage MBE is an ocean rower, environmental campaigner, author, speaker, and life coach. She holds 4, yes, you heard me right, 4 world records for ocean rowing, including first woman to row solo across 3 oceans, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Indian. She's rowed over 15,000 miles, taken around 5 million oar strokes, and spent cumulatively over 500 days of her life alone at sea, wait for it, in a 23-foot rowboat. A latecomer to the life of adventure, Roz was a management consultant in London for 11 years before deciding there was more to life than a steady income and a house in the suburbs. Now, since embarking on her first ocean in 2005, she's braved storms, capsizes, and the psychological challenge of spending up to 5 months alone at sea. Her hardships have forced her to find the strength to overcome everything, especially herself. She's published 2 books, Rowing the Atlantic, Lessons Learned on the Open Ocean, and Stop Drifting. There we go. Stop Drifting, Start Rowing, One Woman's Search for Happiness and Meaning Alone on the Pacific. And it is an incredible book. Her passion now is taking the lessons that she's learned both on and off the ocean and using them to guide her clients to overcome self-limiting beliefs and achieve their highest potential. Seriously, I am super excited to have with me here today, Roz. Welcome.
Thank you, Gina. And likewise, I'm really excited to be chatting with you today.
Always a pleasure. Honestly, I've been excited about this all week. And if you ask any of my social media following, they will tell you the same. So, I want to talk to you today, Roz, about courage, about feeling the fear and doing it anyway, and about the sacred work of contributing to the evolution of collective consciousness. This is so mind-blowing. Okay, before we delve into what's going to be an amazing conversation, tell us a little bit about your backstory. Tell us about you.
It's been an interesting life. It could so easily have been very, very different. I was really good as a child at jumping through hoops. You know, at school, I was good at passing exams. And the danger of being really good at jumping through other people's hoops is that you don't really stop and think about what you want and who you are and what's going to make you happy and fulfilled in life. And so it wasn't really until my early 30s that I started asking some of these big questions in a kind of early midlife crisis. And what precipitated that crisis was, I think, having grown up in a family with not very much money, I thought that having a good job and getting a good paycheck was going to buy me happiness. And I reached this point where it was becoming really quite conspicuously noticeable that this was not true. It kind of reached a point where I thought, they're just not paying me enough to feel this miserable about my job. And so I really had to kind of jump out of the aeroplane and then start making my own parachute. I found that having, a 2-week holiday wasn't long enough to think about what I really wanted to do with life. So I had to pretty much quit everything and set about building myself up again from scratch. And it was around that time that I had an environmental epiphany and thought, it's terrible what we're doing to the earth. I have to do whatever I can do to bring people's attention to this. Being a recovering management consultant wasn't a particularly compelling platform, though. But as luck would have it, around that time I met a guy who'd rowed across the Atlantic with, of all people, his mother. And so I thought, well...
No way!
Yeah. So, in my imagination, adventurers had to be at least 6 foot tall with big bushy beards. But when I found out about this, I thought, well, if someone's mum can do it, I know how to row. Obviously, there's a bit of a difference between rowing with 8 other people on a nice flat River Thames and rowing solo across oceans. But it was enough to give me the sort of happy delusion that this was something I was qualified to do. So that's what I set out to do. And from those 7 years, from 2005 to 2011, as you say, did a spot of ocean rowing.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. And used that as my platform to raise environmental awareness.
That is incredible. So talk to us about the impact of raising the environmental awareness.
It's quite difficult to measure the impact. Obviously, the world has progressed in many ways since I first sort of got my green on and became really passionate about this. One particular issue that I've talked a lot about is plastic pollution in the oceans, because that's something that I've witnessed firsthand. But what I really wanted to do with the campaigning wasn't around a specific issue, because I tend to think of our environmental challenges as being like this many-headed monster, like a sea monster maybe. And, maybe one head is deforestation, another one's plastic pollution, another one's climate change, another one's ocean acidification. There are so many different issues, and we can keep cutting off one head at a time, but another head will just keep growing back, because at the heart of the monster is the way that human beings relate to our planet. And I suppose my experiences on the ocean have really brought it home to me where human beings stand in the overall scheme of things. Like when you're out there face to face with Mother Nature and she's kicking your backside with 20-foot waves.
And you're losing your anchor and all those crazy things.
Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong at some point. It really does remind you that how powerful nature is. And so I think at the heart of it is healing that disconnect that we have with nature, and also recognizing that what each and every single one of us does makes a difference. Mostly, I know we've had a few big environmental disasters, but mostly the reason that we've ended up where we are, which is on a not terribly healthy course. And by the way, just to clarify, I'm not worried about the planet. Like, ultimately, the planet's going to be fine. It's the humans that I'm worried about. Because most of my best friends are humans, and I'd quite like us to be around for quite a while yet.
A little bit longer.
And so I'm really worried about this path that we're on right now. And sometimes people say to me, oh, but I'm just one person out of 7.3 billion. How can I make any difference? But we're all making a difference already, and it's really a matter of being conscious about that difference. And I use this metaphor of one of my oar strokes on the way across the ocean didn't get me very far, just a few feet. But you take millions and millions of tiny actions, and they really do add up to something very significant. So it's up to all of us just to know that everything that we do has an impact.
And it really does. It really does. I know we're going to talk more about that in a little while, so we'll park that thought for a minute and we'll come back to it. How did you stay focused? Right, you're in the middle of the ocean. How did you stay focused throughout all of that to get to your destination?
Well, thank you for the very generous assumption that I did manage to stay focused.
Well, we're assuming you did because you're here.
Well, focused enough to survive. But especially on my first voyage, the Atlantic, I made pretty much every psychological mistake in the book. I allowed myself to get very distracted by things that I couldn't control, like waves, like the breakages, like the injuries that I had. And I really allowed those things to get on top of me. And I learned so much about myself and about how to tackle really big challenges out there, entirely by doing it the wrong way first. Experience
Which is a great way.
Oh, it is. I mean, you never forget those lessons that
absolutely
that you learn by particularly giving yourself an unnecessarily hard time. Rowing across an ocean is hard, but I made it exponentially harder by just by having to do so much growing up and learning how to discipline my mind so as not to kind of get carried away with thoughts of catastrophe. And so just trying to think of a good example of that. There are so many. One of the things was really needing to find a constructive way to frame things. So as an example of that, rowing notion is really uncomfortable. Like when you've got tendonitis in your shoulders, you've got saltwater sores on your bottom, and the boat's constantly rocking, and things have broken. Like all four of my oars had broken before I reached halfway. It's almost unbearably uncomfortable. And there was one particular day when I had a bit of an insight around this, because my inner dialogue is just like grumble, grumble, grumble. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so miserable. I'm hating.
I have no oars. I can't get anywhere.
Exactly. And then I sort of went, oh, hold on a moment. I remember now how many people I told when they asked me why I wanted to do this, that I wanted to get outside my comfort zone. And getting outside my comfort zone, exactly, it's going to be uncomfortable. And so when that penny dropped, I mean, you can only laugh at yourself, really, can't you?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I should be more careful what I wish for, because I'm obviously radically succeeding in getting outside my comfort zone here.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
But actually embracing that as what I'd set out to do, rather than grumbling and berating myself about it.
So it came back to reminding yourself of the purpose of it, and your motivation, and really connecting back with your whole vision for doing it, really.
Exactly. And we've all got our challenges to face. I was lucky in that I got to choose my rather masochistic challenges, but a lot of people either they have an accident or an illness and have to figure out how to get through that, or there are people who voluntarily take on challenges like starting a business or starting a family, and there might be moments along those bumpy journeys when we're going, why did this ever seem like a good idea? And so it's reconnecting with what really matters in those situations. Either reminding ourselves why we chose to do it in the case of the voluntary challenges, or reminding ourselves why it's important that we keep on going, just keep showing up every day in the involuntary ones.
Definitely. And I love the way that you we're talking about your life and being on the ocean, but actually everything that we're going to talk about right now and all the strategies we're going to go through, it's all totally relevant to anybody. It doesn't matter what it is that you're undertaking. Everything that you've learned can be used at any point in your life, can it not?
Absolutely. And in fact, I have been very mindful of that. When I finished doing the first ocean, I knew I'd learned a hell of a lot, but it had been such a steep learning curve in those 3.5 months that I had to really kind of do the work when I got back to dry land and figure out how I wasn't going to leave that sort of wiser, better version of myself out there on the ocean, but actually bring back those lessons learned and weave them into the very fabric of my being, so that regardless of where I was and what I was doing, that they would be present there as tools in my psychological toolbox to draw on. And certainly throughout the later voyages, but also in the 4 years since I, thank God, stopped rowing across oceans, I found those lessons so useful. So I no matter what we're doing in life, it is about tackling these big challenges, especially for those of us who are on a journey, who are trying to make ourselves and or the world better. A lot of this work is hard, and it is finding that motivation to keep on going that's so important.
Absolutely. And I think that comes back to courage as well, doesn't it? It's about connecting with what that reason is and what that motivation is and what it is that you're looking to do, but then also thinking about keeping the faith and being courageous at the same time. So let's talk about courage.
One of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Tell me what courage means to you.
I really believe that courage is either learnable or discoverable. I love that story of the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz. And, he wants to be courageous. And it's when the wizard gives him that badge that says courage on it,
Yeah.
that he actually starts to believe that he has courage, even though he's done lots of courageous things along the way. And I certainly didn't used to believe that I was courageous. When I was busy jumping through everybody else's hoops, I thought, I didn't think I was creative. I didn't think I was a leader. I didn't think that I had the guts to go out and tackle a big challenge. And what enabled me to find my courage, to get my courage badge, was just becoming incredibly motivated by really two things. One was the environmental mission, and the other one was this kind of early midlife crisis, and really wanting to find out who I was and what I was capable of. And really throughout my voyages, it was kind of 50-50, those two big drivers. And I needed both, because there were days when if it had just been about me, then I'd have said, oh, to heck with this.
I'm going home, I'm turning around.
Yes. Well, it's quite difficult to turn around, but, I could have asked for a passing boat to come and pick me up. And so I needed the environmental mission, like that higher purpose to keep me going. And then vice versa as well. I'm afraid there were days when I was like, can the environment be that important that I'm going through this kind of hell for it? So those two really big, powerful reasons why I was doing this crazy, ridiculous thing really helped me to find the courage to just keep showing up, to get out of my sleeping bag in the morning, get out onto that rowing seat and keep sticking my oars in the water for 12 hours a day. And so I really, you can't be courageous in a vacuum. It's like you have to have that challenge. You need to have that kind of sense of calling to do something that really, really matters to you in order to unleash all of those inner resources. And so I think anyone can be courageous. Really, if you'd have known me before I started the rowing, you would not have guessed that that was in my stars at all. Back at school, I wasn't very sporty, couldn't catch, couldn't throw, wasn't quick, was kind of small and nobody wanted me on their team.
I just find that so mind-blowingly amazing that you've then gone to row across 3, not even like little oceans, they're like,
I know, they're pretty
gigantic.
big. Yeah, I really quite surprised myself there. But isn't that fun? I mean, isn't it amazing?
Absolutely.
You find something that just motivates you so much that you just have to do something. You can't stand by and not do something about it. And in the same way, I used to hate public speaking. When I was a management consultant, I was just terrified that someone would ask me a question that would show everybody that I didn't have a clue what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Which was actually a very valid fear because I didn't have a clue. But now I actually really embrace the opportunities to speak because I feel like I've got something helpful, hopefully helpful,
You have.
important and useful to say. And so, again, my motivation has trumped, or I guess this is the way I think of it. If you're afraid of one thing, but you want to do it, find something else that you're more afraid of. So, yes, it was scary rowing across oceans, but I was more scared of where we're heading environmentally and also where I was heading personally if I didn't turn my life around in some way.
Wow,
And
that's interesting.
That enabled me to kind of trump my fear of being alone in the middle of an ocean.
Yeah, so it's almost like you'd kind of put your mind on something more fearful, if you like, to take it away from what you were doing. So you could
yeah, it's all
Wow.
a question of, I suppose, priorities in a sense. But
Wow.
looking back, I find it fascinating that when I was working in the office, my self-esteem was really going down the pan because I wasn't really thriving in that environment at all. I just had such a downer on myself because I didn't feel like I was contributing anything. I didn't feel intelligent. I just felt like a real loser in that environment. And yet, I wonder if any of my former managers and bosses have seen what I've done since. And they're like, oh my God, actually, she did have determination and tenacity and creativity and
Definitely.
initiative. And how can we never manage to unleash any of that? And I take my share of the responsibility for that too, because I didn't know that I had those resources.
Yeah.
So I suppose what I'm saying is that if anybody listening to this has got something that they really care about, but they don't think they've got what it takes to do it, just muster up that initial bit of courage just to set your foot on that path, just that first step, and see what happens, because you might end up really surprising yourself.
You will end up surprising yourself.
For sure. Yeah. Just what you unleash when you really care about something, when you get seriously motivated. It's amazing.
It really is. It's so powerful. And I think it always comes back to figuring out what that first step is. So obviously connecting with what it is that you're wanting to do. But then it's around thinking, okay, so what is the first step that I can take that won't push me totally out of my comfort zone?
Yeah. A few thoughts on that. The first one is in between leaving my corporate job and starting the ocean rowing, I had about 4 years of what I call my sort of happy dabbling phase. I was lucky that I had enough in savings and I was bringing in a bit of money. But what I was really trying to do was figure out what mattered to me. So I spent a bit of time as a photographer, organic baker,
cool.
Travel around Peru, wrote a book about that. And I was really just trying to figure out, what do I love to do? What makes me, what makes my heart sing?
Yeah.
And another really important thing that happened in that phase was that I let go of my fear of failure.
Ah, okay.
And I also let go of caring too much about what other people thought of me.
And what was the process for you letting go of those things? Can you remember how you took
really screwing up at things. I mean, I think that's the best way to get over your fear of failure is to have a failed career, to have a failed marriage, try a few other projects and fail at those, and to go, oh, well, the world's still turning.
And that's the important bit, isn't it? It's about realising that, yes, things could go wrong and you might feel like you've failed in some way, but actually life still goes on and nobody thinks any less of you.
Yeah, and in fact, even though people looking at me might have gone, oh my, she's in free fall, I actually felt like I was learning a lot about myself. And so I didn't perceive them as failures. I perceived them as getting to know myself, maybe rather belatedly, but better late than never.
Absolutely. Wow. That's a great way to think about it, actually.
Yeah. And likewise, I really stopped caring. If other people wanted to label me a failure, that's their call. If it made them feel better about their lives, I really don't mind. It's no skin off my nose. But it was incredibly liberating. And I realized that previously my fear of failure had really, really held me back from even trying things in case I didn't succeed.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, just having a go at things. And I also had to stop taking myself so damn seriously.
So many people do that, don't they? What's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, once you start, life is serious, but you can also treat it with a playfulness and have fun with it. And so all of those learning experiences for me. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to share was, I think when you're contemplating a big challenge and thinking about reaching out that leg and putting your foot on the path, certainly in my case, there was a lot to be said for a large quantity of naive optimism, and then having too much stubbornness to quit once I'd actually realised what it was I'd let myself in for. Feeling so called to do something that I was just going to bulldoze on regardless.
And do that
thing. Yeah.
I'm guessing at some point fear came up, right?
Oh yes. Seriously.
So what did you do when that fear is sparked?
Yeah.
How did you get over that or deal with that so you could carry on doing what you were obviously called to do?
Yeah, so I'll just take you into like my fear early on the first crossing the Atlantic. Um, so the day one. So I
Day
started
one.
at midday on the 30th of November. Oh, we're coming up to my 10th anniversary actually.
Oh, wow.
In
That's
fact,
exciting.
yeah. So if this is going out on the 1st of December, yesterday will have been
Yes.
my 10-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you. So day one, first of all, I have a problem with the water maker, only the most important piece of equipment on my boat
The
that's
thing
going to
that
take
keeps you
seawater
alive.
that like keeps me alive, which is a good
Right.
thing. So I have a problem with that. And the only way I could get in touch with the race organisers is to call them up on the VHF radio. So everybody in the whole, so the Atlantic I did in a race, the other voyages I did completely independently, but the Atlantic I'm in a race. And so all 26 boats hear me going, oh, I can't get my water maker to work. Oh. And then, 6 p.m, I'm being seasick. And then that first night alone on the ocean, with the waves sounding so huge, and everyone else has long since like scattered to the four corners, and I'm feeling very alone and very sick, and just really, really scared, thinking, what have I done? This is so outside anything I've ever done before. And I'm just sort of curled up in the fetal position in my cabin, feeling like the world's biggest idiot, really, for thinking that I was up to this. So how did I keep on going? Stubborn refusal to quit.
I'm noticing a theme there.
Yes. That strong sense of calling that I had. I knew intellectually that this project just ticks all the boxes for my own personal journey and for the environmental campaigning. So I could sort of reason with myself that this was exactly what I was meant to be doing. And I also had to somewhat learn to limit my imagination. There's definitely a time for imagination to be given free rein, but there are times when it can start working against you. It can start catastrophizing and creating all kinds of unlikely and very scary scenarios. And it's certainly good if you're going to do something like ocean rowing to have thought through all of those scary scenarios before you set out. And I had done. I'd documented in every bad situation I could think of what I would do, which gave me some comfort that I'd at least thought through all of these things.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, again, if you've got your own business, this might be something you want to think about doing.
Definitely.
Just so you know you've thought about it. Of course, the one thing that does happen is going to be the one thing you haven't thought about.
Of course, but hey, you've dealt with the hundreds of other things.
Exactly.
So,
there'll be something that's similar enough.
Yeah, of course.
But it is just that I think probably the most important thing was just to focus on the task at hand, and try not to let my mind wander too far forwards. I was there to row 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. That is a really long way when you're going at 2 miles an hour. And thinking all that way ahead just completely freaked me out. So I had to learn to just take it one day at a time, or sometimes just one rowing shift at a time, or sometimes just the next 10 oar strokes.
Okay.
But there were times when all I wanted to do was throw down the oar handles in disgust and, go have a sleep. But I did find that if I could just persuade myself to do 10 more oar strokes, often that crisis would pass and I'd find that I'd be back into the swing of it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were setting yourself lots of little targets as you were going along. It goes
Yeah.
back to breaking it down into a smaller task, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you were focused on, I'm guessing you had an idea in your head of how far you wanted to travel each day, or?
Actually, I gave up on that because
Did you?
it was so unpredictable. I mean, again, metaphor for life here. Progress is often not linear. Do you get this when you feel like for days or weeks or months you've been banging your head against a brick wall trying to make something happen? And then you just have one of those sort of miraculous red letter days where just everything flows and like a whole load of projects suddenly come to fruition all at the same time. And you're just like, yes, I'm the champion.
Finally! Woo!
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I'm sure everybody out there resonates with that too.
Yes. And so for me, my ocean world, I could row for 12 hours a day, and one day I might go 36 miles, and another day I might go 13 miles backwards
Okay.
because the winds and the currents could just play merry hell with me.
Those
And
pesky things.
I know, at least the winds, you can feel them and you can measure them, but the currents, the ocean currents, you can't even see them. They're like these invisible forces that are just there to really annoy you.
Yeah.
And so I had to reach this point after, this is, by the way, via a huge amount of frustration.
I can imagine.
I had to reach this point where, okay, the ocean and the wind are going to do their thing. I have no control over that. So what I can control is my thing, which is to sit there for 12 hours a day and keep sticking my oars in the water.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to focus on. So I really just stuck to my routine. I focused on the number of hours I was rowing rather than trying to reach a target number of miles, because that way lay insanity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that metaphor, and I think this, in my head, this sums up courage, really. It's about keep sticking your oars in, just keep going.
Yeah, it is. So much of courage is just about, just keep on showing up.
That's great.
Courage doesn't have to be spectacular. It doesn't have to be, lifting the car off somebody, or running into a burning house. A lot of courage is just remarkably mundane, but no less important for that.
Absolutely. Listen, I could talk to you about courage all day, but I know that I really want to talk to you about collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Give us your thoughts, views, ideas.
Yeah, I had an insight recently about this. I was trying to, I realized there were a number of things that go on in the world that I don't like. And I was trying to find like my personal theory of everything.
Okay, I'm sure we've all done that at some point. Yeah.
So I sort of realized that all of these things that annoy me are things that get in the way of evolving our collective consciousness. So I love this concept that I first read about 11 years ago in Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, where he kind of presents this idea that we are all little fragments of the collective consciousness. And it's almost in fact, it is our personal duty to evolve ourselves as individuals as really a service to our fellow humans, because it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. So when we are our best selves, we help liberate other people to be their best selves too. And I just loved that, because it meant that me trying to make myself better was not arrogant or pushy or look at me, look at me. It was actually, it felt like a gift, a service to my fellow humans. And so these things that really bug me because they're getting in the way of people really becoming fulfilled and self-actualized. I realized this is what upsets me about our environmental issues, because if we screw up the world so badly that either we make ourselves extinct or we make the world such a difficult place for humans to live in that we actually slide down Maslow's hierarchy of needs rather than moving up it. Yeah. That's not going to be a good situation. The other two main areas that frustrate me are our kind of disconnection. I already mentioned our disconnection from nature. Yeah. But I think in many senses, we're also becoming increasingly disconnected from each other. I know we've got wonderful technologies that enable us to connect, but I'm talking about the real deep connection. Yes, absolutely. And the empathy and the compassion for all other humans, not just the ones in our circle of friends or the ones that look like us, but really everybody. And even this sort of disconnection from ourselves, like our inner selves or our higher selves, or however you want to visualize this. And as part of my journey, I've had to do a lot of work on trying to reconnect with me. Who
Mm-hmm.
am I? What do I want out of life? What do I love to do? And I think too often we get disconnected by all these musts and shoulds and oughts.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then the third kind of category is I call it conformity, which is where I was for a long time.
Yeah.
So I say this without judgment because, I've been on both sides of this fence. But it is, I was very materialistic for quite a long time as a reaction against a not very wealthy childhood. And that desire for money and stuff really kept me trapped in jobs that I didn't like for a long time. And I didn't really think to question that assumption that money and stuff were going to make me happy, as I mentioned earlier. Also, when when that money is important to us, we tend to work long hours because we think that if we're not happy enough, it's because we're not rich enough. And if we're not rich enough, it's because we're not working hard enough. We really need to interrogate those assumptions, because actually I don't think those three things, happiness, money and work, are as connected as we think they are. And the danger is that when we're working so many hours a week, if our work isn't feeding our souls, nourishing us, then it takes away so much of the time when we could be thinking about these more important questions.
Definitely.
And if we're going to rethink work, then we also kind of need to rethink education, because the world has changed so much since I was at school, but our education system hasn't changed very much.
It stayed very similar, indeed.
And I would love to see education focusing on the life skills and the creativity and the how to be happy and fulfilled side of life, because I feel like those things are much more important. I mean, I know we need some solid academic subjects as well.
Sure, yeah. I think everybody out there will be listening to this and resonating, because, as we look at our young people now, and even as adults, we look at ourselves and we think, we've been through the education, which is great, it's got us to where we are today, but are we really happy? Are we doing our life's purpose? Are we even aware of what our life's purpose is?
Yeah, exactly. And I know school students may be a bit too young to be thinking about, although actually I think a lot of them have got it sorted, haven't they? I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut.
Yeah, absolutely.
At what point does that get crushed? So maybe actually education should be more about preserving what we already are.
And encouraging that as well.
Exactly, nurturing it, rather than educating it out of us.
Exactly.
So that we then have to try and uneducate ourselves back. Well, you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Try and find our way back to those sacred souls that we were as children.
Absolutely. So what do you think is our role then within collective consciousness, and how we evolve even further?
I loved the phrase that Neil Donald Walsh used, which was that we sort of have this obligation to be the grandest version of the greatest vision that we ever had of ourselves.
That's cool.
I mean, just dream. Get to know yourself. Think about what will feed you, but kind of connected to a higher purpose as well. So there are some really amazing life-changing books out there. There are obviously coaches like you and me, Gina, who can help people to find some answers to those big questions, even to give people permission to ask those big questions in the first place. I think we do all have our own answers. It does take work to look inside and ask those tough questions, but once you get into it, it's kind of fun.
I find it hugely fun. I get so excited by asking those kind of questions.
A lot of my work looks like me sitting in a coffee shop with my journal, drinking a bread latte, and thinking about big questions.
Indeed.
And it's fabulous.
But don't you find, though, that that's when the most progress happens with you as a person? When you're asking yourself those questions?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I do really enjoy reading books as well that I feel inspire me and open up my thoughts in new directions. They've definitely, I feel like I've stood on the shoulders of giants by reading some really mind expanding books.
Mm.
But ultimately, we all have to come up with our own answers, and there isn't
We
really a
do.
shortcut to that. It's a life's journey,
Of course, of
but
course.
it's fun every step of the way. And I do think the universe also gives us pats on the back when we're heading in the right direction.
I think so, and we're always being guided as well. You know, those little I always talk about it when I go out for a walk and you get those little thoughts coming through your head quite often, or it's so easy just to dismiss them and not think about them. But these days I take a little notebook with me and I write down every single thought that comes into my mind. And when I get back, I know that those things are going to be hugely powerful, and they always are. You know, they're guiding me in the right way. So
That's wonderful.
I think if anybody's watching and you're thinking about, you know, the evolution of yourself and collective consciousness and, you know, and raising awareness globally, which is, you know, it's a big commitment to do, but we can do this one person at a time, and you're one person. So work on yourself, ask yourself those powerful questions, and really raise your awareness about who you are, how you know, and why you're here.
And I think there's some really cool stuff happening around that now as well. I really feel like we're at the start of something exciting.
I can feel it. It's right here.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
It's
feel
so
it? Do you
cool.
get it?
And so it doesn't have to be a lonely journey either.
Absolutely.
There are communities of people out there who are supporting each other in their journeys, and I think that's when actually the most exciting stuff starts to happen. It is this sort of beautiful dance between the individual inner work, but then also connecting with kindred spirits around the world and seeing how we can support each other in our evolution.
Definitely. And supporting each other is what it's all about. So thank you so much, Roz. It's been a huge pleasure and honour to speak with you today.
Oh, likewise, absolutely.
If anybody would like to have any more information about Roz's work or what she's up to at the moment, her website is, do you want to do it?
RozSavageCoaching.com. Or if you want to know about all the oceany stuff, that's on my old website at RozSavage.com.
Okay,
I'm
fabulous.
guessing we've probably got more spiritual seekers than aspiring ocean rowers on this call.
Potentially. I don't know, you kind of got me on the thought of it. I'm joking. So all the links that you'll need to get in touch with Roz to keep up to date with what she's up to and to find out more information, they'll all be below the video. So make sure you go and check out what she's up to. If you haven't got a copy of Roz's books, here's one of them. It is absolutely incredible. Go and buy one right now. I could not put it down. I told you this already. You kept me up all night, which was great.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. So to finish off, Roz, what message would you like to leave people with about courage?
The first time is always the hardest time to be courageous. It's kind of that feeling where your heart is pounding and you got white knuckles, your fists are clenched so hard, and you're just like quite literally sort of screwing up your courage like this. But you'll quickly start seeing results. So the first time will be hard, but feel the fear and do it anyway. And your life will never be the same again.
Amen to that.
And just before I sign off, Gina, I just want to say thank you so much, because in turn you have really inspired me.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And everybody that's with us here is thanking you so much for your words of wisdom. And yeah, they'll be in touch, I'm sure. So thank you once again, Roz.
Pleasure.
And we'll speak soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gina.
Hi, it's Gina, checking in with you. I hope you not only enjoyed that conversation that we just had, but it also got you thinking about your life and the direction it is heading. The biggest stumbling block that I see over and over and over again is that people aren't clear on where they're heading. They don't know what it is that they want, and they get that feeling of, is there more to life than this? Without a clear direction, you will feel unfocused, overwhelmed, and out of control. I know, because I've been there. Here's what I know about people. The odds say that most people will do the same thing next year as they did this year. If you're ready to have 2016 be different than 2015, what's holding you back? From my experience, it is you. You're the only thing holding yourself back, be it consciously or subconsciously. So let's talk about how we can work together. I work with determined, strong, persistent and confident women to gain clarity on their vision and their purpose and to define their direction. Here are the benefits that I think you will take away when we work together. The Discover Your Direction course is 6 sessions over 3 months. We're going to meet every 2 weeks because in my experience it takes a minimum of 3 months for you to be able to take something new and begin to put it into place and to start to see some changes. When we work together, I will take you through a formula to define what it is that you want in your business and in your life. We'll delve into mastering those situations that knock you off your feet and off your path. We'll explore being more skillful at handling difficult situations. We'll gain clarity on your vision and where you're heading, as well as starting to uncover your purpose. And then we will create a toolkit for you to ensure that you're focused, you're productive, and you're taking steps to achieve what it is that you want. In those 6 sessions, I have a formula that we're going to follow. But listen, these are your calls. And so if we break that formula because that's where you need to go, then that's what we're going to do. And someplace around session 4, we're going to start to assess how you're feeling and what's going on, and to look at the changes that you're sensing, if not the changes that you've already begun to put into place. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in session 4 and session 5, and certainly in session 6. And if at the end of 6 sessions you don't even see a little glimmer of light, despite your best effort and the work that you've put in, I will give you your money back. So the worst thing that can happen is you spend a few hours with me and nothing changes. The best thing that happens is we spend a few hours together and you're on your way to where you want to go. If we could work together and put you on the path to the outcome that you're looking for, which is to have a stronger purpose in your life, to understand where you're going, and to have a plan to get you there. If we can do that in 6 sessions to put you on the road, are you ready to begin to do that? If you are, click the link in the box below to apply for the Discover Your Direction course. Go ahead, check it out, the link's there in the box, Discover Your Direction course, apply now, and I look forward to working with you. Bye for now.